Hey friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols, the Advanced Protocols Data Project. So today I'd like to follow up on a video we did the other day, and we got a bunch of emails about this, not a bunch, a few. And they wanted to know more information on this aspect, PK. And Super Sleuth and I wrote up a document, and it would be a pleasure for either her or I to send you it if you want any of those previous tips. So PK, what is PK? PK is psychokinesis, which is the Greek word meaning mind movement. Well, what kinds of psychokinesis are there? Well, there's two different kinds. There's micropsychokinesis and macropsychokinesis. Micro is generally associated with stuff that's detectable by machines and much smaller and requires finer instrumentation generally to observe. And macro is visible with the naked eye and doesn't have to be as big as weather. There's all sorts of different types of psychokinesis, as long as it's the larger stuff visible with eye, or just visible with the naked eye in general. But what are these things? Well, there's a big misunderstanding that psychokinesis, whether micro or macro, is about telekinesis, and that's not true at all. It's a big misnomer. There are many different abilities associated with psychokinesis. One is aports. And aports is the ability to pass one object through any objects into another object. It's oftentimes associated with poltergeist activity. There have been fascinating cases documented by the CIA, and you can go to the CIA's own database in China and in the United States and in Russia. There have been numerous different individuals who have shown this ability, from Ingo Swann, Uri Geller, to a Russian guy, I can't remember his name, and a Chinese lady. She could pass stuff through glass, apparently in a safe. And this is in a declassified CIA report. So there's also cases of levitation. Now, personally, I've never seen a case of human levitation that I've found to be believable, but there certainly are cases of levitating other types of objects, and numerous cases and studies done about that. Healing couldn't be more well studied and couldn't have be more proven, basically. Healing has been proven in study after study, university after university, and the data is really empirical and amazing. But once you get into this stuff, it's completely understandable that the mind has an ability to heal and help others. And it's not just humans. They've healed algae and plants and all sorts of different things. So the ability to heal is just another wonderful, and if not the most wonderful, aspect of psychokinesis or any of the psi talents. Materialization is really extraordinary. To violate all of these laws of physics and bring something into existence is the assertion of materialization. And there's been many cases of this, from the lady in, I believe it was Florida, who had gold leaf coming from her body. I think it ended up being bronze or something. There's many different types of materialization. Psychokinesis, the ability to start fires. Retrocausality, which is a really cool one when you really think about the possibilities of retrocausality. And remote influencing. And in a way, healing is remote influencing. All of these, in a way, are remote influencing. But remote influencing is really only limited by your own creativity. How do you start? Where do you begin if you wanted to dive into this world? Well, first you work really hard on your basic psi stuff. All of your psi skills, you should be exercising them, not just one arm. If you're going to a gym, you don't just exercise one arm, right? You exercise your whole body. And so with psi, you need to exercise the whole range of them. So you need to be trying all of these different types of gifts and exercises. And you need to always end on a positive note. Ingo Swann was a very big proponent of that. And work on your exercises. And here's an exercise if you wanted to start on it. You could take magnets, either a circular magnet that you could unscrew a old used microwave, and you can stick your finger inside that used magnet, that circular magnet, and close your eye and start to see if you can sense it, if you can feel it. There's iron in blood, so you may be able to even use that to your advantage. You could put a magnet underneath several different sheets of paper and have someone put it under one of them and detect where it is. But first you start with just, before doing any tests, start with just trying to feel it, just trying to sense it. Wave your hand over it, just wave your hand over it and see if you sense it, where you can see it with your eyes open. Do that a bunch of times and see where you can start to feel it, and then after that you can go on to playing with magnetism a little more. As opposed to going straight to the material world, magnetism is one of those wonderful effects of the universe that is kind of a transition point from mind to matter. Magnetism is one of those weird things in the middle. So you can use this as that transition point to straight, matter stuff. So then you can start working on compasses, shifting and moving compass needles and things. And at first you'll start, and it may start just very small, as just very small effects, and then it will grow over time. There's a lot of other little things to remember and think about when doing this stuff. One of the things I love to remind people about is something called the faith gap. Let's say you wanted to bend some metal, and you had some nails, and a friend said, I want the test to be this way. I'm going to take the nail and put it on top of a desk, and you're going to have it bent for me by the morning. First of all, it's a really extreme test. But you need to work with the universe. The universe loves a little bit of hiding space to do its work, to do its magic. The universe loves a little bit of privacy sometimes. And if you give the universe a little bit of privacy, a little bit of a faith gap, a little bit of its own sanctuary, then the universe might just surprise you. So instead of putting that nail on the top of a desk, you could put that nail, mark it with like a nail polish on the head of it, and then put it in a drawer with a bunch of other nails, and then close that drawer. So it's in the dark, it's in there, and it gives the universe just more playroom, more entropy happening all at once, and more chance for the universe to do something really cool. So the faith gap, keep that in mind. The faith gap is a really cool extra thing. So let's move on a little bit more into macro psychokinesis. Before I do that, I want to talk about one or two more exercises. The compass is a great one. Start after you detect the magnetism after your first level, then move on to trying to move it slightly. And it's gonna take patience. Have patience, but set up devices and tests that are very, 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 very delicate, so you can start small and feel rewarded when it moves. So, for example, you could have a magnet and a piece of metal on a string, and you take the piece of metal and hold it, and so it'll be suspended kind of at a weird angle, and so there'll be a light tension there, and try and make it bounce or move from a distance. Be careful not to breathe on it, because that'll make it do the same. And then you can move on to things like this. This is, compass is very, very delicate and light and soft, and that's another great one to kind of transition to these cooler stuff. Remember as a kid, I don't know if you guys did this where you are, but we did in Florida, would sing little songs like Rain, Rain, Go Away, Come Back Another Day. And oftentimes really cool, weird stuff would happen, right? I'm sure you remember that as kids. Well, there's a very famous PK guy who's known as the PK man, Ted Owens, who had over 200 documented large-scale cases of macro psychokinesis. And he called major events, and he called them ahead of time. And he would write a couple of the top physicists and newspapers in his area and say there's going to be a flood within 30 days, there'll be UFO reports, and there will be a blackout in the city. So he had several major big things, but they usually happen like over a 30-day period, so more of a long distance. He gave the universe a lot of faith gap. He gave it a lot of faith gap. But with over 200 cases, and these were amazing cases, and you can research this. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove has done wonderful work on this, and he wrote this incredible book, The PK Man, which should be done into a movie. That would be a really cool movie. But anyway, Ted Owens is a prime example of the weather example. And he attributed it to himself, that he caused it, not that he predicted it or saw the future, that he actually caused it. But he said it was being done by himself, but through these two praying mantis aliens that were on an invisible spaceship surrounding the Earth and or traveling around the Earth, and they were called Twitter and Tweeter or something like that. An amazing, amazing case and an amazing, amazing individual, Ted Owens. So aside from weather and all sorts of weather conditions and big natural disasters, I'm sure you can imagine, there's also changing outcomes of future or past events. You can do stuff like this in practice with horse races, even, and football and sporting and things like that. Of course, there's healing, and you should always be working on healing and trying and healing someone somewhere in the world, if not yourself, which is really not the best target, even though sometimes I'm sure needed. You should try to use that power to help others in other places, and I'm sure you will know what I'm talking about and who. Numerous psychics have the ability to actually sprout seeds in their hand, which is a really cool ability. And these abilities can be much, much more. So think about it. If remote viewing is empirically proven to be real and healing empirically proven to be real, study after study, what is impossible? Much love to you and yours.